right. Thank you very much, Alexander. And I'm really happy and honored to be here. Just to tell you briefly my context, so where I come from and yeah, who I am. I used to be Alexander's student at school. So any complaints you might have about my English, please forward them to Alexander. But as I calculated today, it was exactly 20 years ago. So since then, some things happened. And yeah, so what I'm doing now, I'm a YouTuber. So congratulations. Now you have seen a YouTuber who is a full-time YouTuber, and I'm an Edutuber, as we call myself, as we call ourselves, as YouTube calls us, which means I do education stuff on YouTube, which is much cooler than gaming or kittens or whatever you might see on YouTube. So what I do, or what I did when I started with that, I was teaching German. And I have been teaching German forever now. So I have studied to become a teacher of German, and I have lived for, I guess, 15 years now in Germany. And I used to work with kids, and I used to work with adults. And in the end, I ended up teaching adults only. And what I did 4 years ago, I have to say it was before Corona, so the decision to go completely online was a weird decision. So everybody who knew me said I'm crazy. As I knew before that I'm crazy, it didn't really bother me. So I started making YouTube videos. Probably I did something right, because as for this morning, I have over 200,000 subscribers, and my videos have been watched like 25 million times, so I can't really imagine the number, but yeah, that seems to be a fact. So what I would like to share with you today are some insights that I acquired, that I gained in the past 4 years teaching German online. So what I did a while after starting the YouTube channel, I started an online school. So we also have online courses matching my videos on YouTube, working with adults only, having customers from all over the world, and having a pretty interesting context to work in, because on the one side, we do help people prepare for exams, so regular official exams like the one from the Goethe Institute you might know, and TELC exams, and any other kind of exams. We concentrate on advanced students, so we normally start with B2 and go up to C2. And despite the fact that we work with exam preparation, I don't like calling myself a teacher who specializes in exams. I like calling myself, let's say, an expert in wings. Yeah, the ones angels have or birds have or something like that. And I heard it's not really nice to quote yourself, but my book that is coming out next year, I hope, is going to be called something like How to Pass Your Exam and Keep Your Wings. What do I mean by that? Probably my most important insight during the past 4 years, over the time I have worked with hundreds of people individually, and I can't count all the people that I have had an impact on with my videos, with my courses, etc. But the interesting thing I found out, first, I don't really care about exams. Please don't tell anyone, because I make my living off that. And second thing is, the only and most important thing you need to concentrate on if you work like I do, you need to concentrate on the people. So the people are what is the most important in my work. And I found out that actually nothing matters. Grammar doesn't matter. Vocabulary doesn't matter. How many hours a day someone practices and someone does exercises and whatever. It does not matter. And probably some official educational institutions are going to shoot me at some point, so you're lucky to have me now. But all those official requirements people need to meet in order to pass an exam, they don't really matter. Because what we do when we start working with someone, we concentrate on the person. So here are some examples of questions I ask when someone comes in one of my courses. I ask questions like, are you a visual person or are you an auditive person? Or maybe you're more of a kinesthetic person. Are you pessimist or an optimist? How about your learning experience? Because most people, and this is really the most frequently heard thing in our courses, oh, I don't really have a talent for languages. I'm more the technical type, and languages is that's not really my thing. And every time I hear that, I know that what we start with is not evaluating how good the grammar is and how good the vocabulary is and how big the gap is until we really can say that this person is prepared for the exam and we kind of guarantee it, more or less. When I hear this sentence, I know that I have to dig deeper. We start talking about the language learning experience. And let's say in 95% of the cases, which is quite a lot because we work with a lot of people, I find out that most people lack self-esteem just to admit what they lack in language and what they lack in knowledge. And they have a problem with the fact that having come to a new country, and most of my clients are migrants or they want to be migrants, they want to come to Germany, they want to work here, they want to study at the university, which means they are willing to change their lives, but they have to embrace the language. And if they had some negative experience learning this language or the previous language or whatsoever, if they come to my course believing that they are losers and they will probably never pass the exam anyway, but let's try that. So basically, my work starts with managing that, because before we do that, it absolutely doesn't matter if we talk about passive voice or conditionals or whatever. If I have someone in front of me who believes that he or she is a loser and doesn't have a talent for languages, and who has been told by the job center in Germany, they like doing that, they say, well, yeah, you are a surgeon. Here I see the diploma from what? Russia? No, it doesn't work here, so you can't be a surgeon. And then the surgeon asks, okay, what can I do here while I'm learning the language? And they say, well, we always need pizza delivery guys, for example. So this is not an imagined situation. So this is what I heard multiple times from customers who came to my courses with a self-esteem at the level of -74. And they said, look, I can't imagine doing anything else in my life but working as a surgeon. So help me to achieve my goal. And then what happens? I normally, if I hear such a story, I don't ask about grammar, I don't ask about vocabulary. I talk to people about their goals. I ask them, what is it that you would like to do that makes your eyes shine, that makes you, that makes you happy? And then they start talking, and then I see that if they see this goal, if they can imagine how attractive it would be to embrace their profession again in a new country, then I see miracles. And I can't say I'm Harry Potter or I have Harry Potter skills, because I can't make people learn anything. So this is one of my primary philosophies, probably. I can't make people learn, and I can't teach them anything. So my belief is that anyone can learn, but I can't really teach them. I can guide them, I can coach them, I can show them the direction, but I can't really teach them. So in such cases, like the one with the Russian surgeon, he was so motivated that I'm not sure, but I guess he went from A2 to C1 in 6 months. If you ask any teacher, any professional, any examiner, if it's possible, they will tell you, are you crazy? Let's calculate. B1 takes several months, B2 takes several months, etc. It's not possible. It was possible because my client was really, really motivated. And I know motivation is a terrible word because everyone talks about it. And I'm not talking about motivation like Tony Robbins does, for example, but I believe that we have to start working with people we have to start with the people. We can't start with anything else. We can't start with exams. We can't start actually with the language. So what I ask, besides something like, are you a visual or an audio person, which might be, if you think about it, a very logical question, which is never asked in schools, because you have a class of students, and maybe for a visual person, it's enough if he sees something on the whiteboard. And for an audio person, if it's called like that, I'm not sure, it is crucial to hear everything they need to learn. And if we can't take it into account, if we can't organize our classes by helping different groups of students, if we can't use these different channels, sense channels, then we fail, because we will reach some students and we won't reach others. Maybe you remember from your school time that teachers were different. And some teachers were more visual, so they were drawing on the whiteboard or blackboard or green board, whatever, and they were showing things. And some of them believed that it's absolutely enough if you heard the stuff, so it should be enough to learn it. So there's so many things nobody ever thought about when I went to school, for example. The school stuff, the material, the content, as we say, the YouTubers, the content was the same for everyone. And I think it's a crime, because it basically gives 10% of your class, maybe 20% of your class, it gives a chance to learn, and the rest is kind of, well, they're not lucky enough, because they would need a different method, different ways of learning. And I'm not talking about different ways of teaching. Sometimes, in order to make your students learn something, you really need to leave them alone and give them a nice homework, but this homework should be adjusted to their way of learning. Now, I'm speaking from many years of experience in teaching, and one by one, I added different skills to my ability to communicate with people. And I guess I'm quite a nice teacher, and I like people, which is crucial when you're a teacher, and which is not automatically the case if a person is a professional teacher. I like asking this question every time I conduct a seminar for teachers. I say, look, you have to actually like your students. You have to like working with people. And they look at me like I was a little crazy, because they say, well, sure, I like people. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a teacher. Well, I could argue with that. I have seen very different teachers, very different colleagues. And if I count together all the stories I have heard from my clients, not everyone who's a teacher really is interested in people. That's why I like saying that I'm an expert in wings for the people I work with, and not an expert in language, not an expert in exams, etc. The interesting thing is, I have clients who know much more about German grammar than I do. And my reaction is always the same. I say, yes, maybe you do know the term, which I wouldn't know, but it's not the point. So it's not so important for me to know all the details about German grammar, as long as I know how to lead, how to coach my students. So over the years, I have added to my courses, to my methodology, stuff like memorizing techniques. Have you ever got a memorizing technique in school to help you memorize stuff? I don't remember that we ever heard about something like that in school. I know schools are different, and I know that many schools work with that now, but this is what we use permanently, because every probably first customer we have arrives and says, well, I can't memorize words, it's too hard. And then we say, okay, which methods have you tried so far? And they look at me again like I was crazy and say, well, I have a list of words and I just read them over and over again until I know them by heart. And I say, well, yes, this is one way of how to do it, but there are multiple ways of how to do it more effectively. So besides using OTSM-TRIZ techniques that are, let's say, more in the background, they are in my courses because I have worked with trees and I have learned with trees for the past 20 years, as I told you. And these are the techniques that help me make a structure in my courses. So we never do stupid learning by heart. We try to find a structure. We go by function. What is the function of a certain task we do? We work with goals. So we never do something like just for the matter of learning a part of language, because I don't believe in that. And I don't believe in, for example, teaching grammar for the sake of teaching grammar. And that's maybe because I used to be Alexander's student, but maybe because it also works quite fine if you deal with grammar at the pace at which you need the grammar. So, for example, when you need to express a wish, at that moment, conditionals become interesting. Otherwise, if you come to a class and your teacher tells you, okay, today we're talking about conditionals, and the students are like, okay, if you say so. So this is how it normally works in class when the student has to learn certain topics, grammar, vocabulary, etc. If he asks why, the answer is mostly, well, it's in the course book, so aha, if it's in the course book, I have to learn it, obviously, because otherwise I won't cover the content necessary for the exam I want to pass. So what we do, and I hope all of you who teach languages do as well, we never answer questions that have not been asked, which means if a student has a question like, how do I express this or that, then the teacher comes up with an answer, which might lead to the fact that the student has to study and work with a topic which is completely not interesting to the rest of the class, because the rest of the class or some other students are dealing with different topics. But this would be a separate topic for a separate talk, how to differentiate within a class. So, because this is the question I get asked all the time, like, well, yes, it sounds really nice what you just told us. And yes, the individual approach is very important, but how do you want to proceed if you have a class of 20 or 25 or 30 students and you want to do that, but you don't really know how? So this might be a separate topic of a talk, because there are ways how to work, and I have experience with Montessori pedagogics, for example, which is very focused on individual tasks. So there are many things. Just to summarize what I wanted to tell you, do not forget that your students are not a tabula rasa, which means that you can't override their experience. You can't handle them as if they were all equal. They are equal in terms of their rights, but they're not equal in terms of their way of learning, their, I don't know, if they're optimists or pessimists, if they're introverts or extroverts. These are all the things you need to take into account. Otherwise, your classes won't be effective. So coming back to the topic of my talk, which you probably have been wondering about through my talk, is how come students know best how to learn a language? And well, I don't mean that they know all the methods you have to use, but if you ask the right questions, if you find out before teaching your class, what kind of people are there? What are they interested in? What is their goal? Are there optimists, pessimists, visual people, etc., etc.? So if you prioritize the students, if you put them in the very center of whatever you do, and the rest becomes less important, because as I told you, and please keep it a secret, I don't care about exams. I don't really care about education institutions because I work basically next to the institutions. I have a pretty free range of stuff I can do just to make my students pass the exams. So just don't forget about the wings. Maybe you can just imagine the wings that every student of yours might have. And this is your goal, to make them keep the wings or to give them the wings back. I hope it was a little inspiring. Thank you very much. It is a great honor for me that I could talk to you.
Thanks a lot, Marija. I think it definitely was inspiring, and I think people could feel that you are really passionate about what you're doing. And it's always nice to listen to people who are passionate about the thing they're doing. We have a few minutes maybe for some comments or questions if you'd like to ask before we move on to the next speaker. Any questions to Marija or any comments you'd like to make regarding the approach to teaching, language teaching, or maybe teaching more generally?
It was fantastic. I enjoyed it so much, especially hearing you saying the phrase tabula rasa, which is in Arabic.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Okay, if no questions and no comments, so we will thank Marija and invite our next speaker, Dr. Shoshereiter from Israel.
Thank you for having me, Alexander, and have fun through the rest of the sessions.
You're welcome. Yes, thanks, Marija.
So now I will share my screen. No, I need to share my screen now, yes? Alexander?
Yes, you can share your screen, or if you want, you can start the file, whichever is easier for you to do.
Why I need to undo that. Then I will share my file. Shall I share? It's better from a PowerPoint, or maybe I'll go for the PDF.
I'm already uploading your presentation, so you upload Good. Now, and I can start it for you if you would like.
Good. I uploaded the PDF.
Okay.
And if you can be also ready with the YouTube link that I send, it will be nice.
Would you like me to show it, or would you show it yourself?
No, I do it, but just in case, to be prepared with it.
Okay.
It's uploading. Takes a few minutes. I see it's very heavy.